Flesh and Blood Phase 2, 1 draft set this year possibly, and 2 supplemental sets, and more are the topics of today's discussion. And I'm going to share with you what I think is going to happen, as well as my thoughts on the matter. How's it going, Rogues Gallery, and welcome. Before we get started, I do want to mention a couple quick things, and no, it's not my haircut. No, it is the various affiliate links I have in the description down below. Channel Fireball, we have some good old favorites like Red Riot Games, Fab Foundry. I have a Dragon Shield link down there too if you'd like to buy some Dragon Shield sleeves. All great choices if you'd like to support me, or my Patreon, where I'm sharing deck lists, where we have like a Discord. I'm giving booster packs and cards back depending on your tiers. Lots of cool stuff there. But without further ado, let's start talking about some really interesting stuff that has happened in the last couple weeks for Flesh and Blood. But I've been so wrapped up in Everfest, which is an awesome set, by the way, that I haven't had much time to talk about it, but I've been thinking about it a lot. So two things basically happened. The Instant Speed podcast with a great friend of mine, Flake, interviewed the fantastic James White. He's also been a guest here on this channel before, and it's always great listening to James talk. And he talked about some stuff there, but he also talked about some stuff on an article as well. And I'm going to try to link the article in the description down below, but as well as the interview that Flake did on the Instant Speed podcast with him. But he brought up a couple things over the course of this interview and over the course of that article that I thought are very interesting, and that I think a lot of people are maybe thinking about, if not talking about. Maybe you just don't know about it. So what I'm alluding to basically is James White mentioned that he was unhappy with how Unlimited is going right now for Flesh and Blood. And honestly, I don't think anyone is happy with how Unlimited is going right now in Flesh and Blood, especially in regards to Tales of Aria. The first edition was so plentiful that I literally just never bought a single box of Unlimited. I was just able to get a first edition for like 80 bucks, and you can still kind of get first edition for around that price. So things need to be changed. Legend Story Studios is very aware of this, and James is going to be making decisions and changes based on this and what he's calling Flesh and Blood Phase 2. Now, what does Phase 2 mean? It could just simply mean that they're going to change up the Unlimited model. The most drastic thing they could do is just completely get rid of Unlimited and just make First Edition plentiful. I think that could be a good option. That's how it was back in the good old days, good old Flesh and Blood days. There was no Unlimited for the first couple sets. It just wasn't a thing. So they could go back to that. They could also do a myriad of things, but it's going to be very interesting to see what they do. And he also mentioned over the course of these two things that the product that's going to be paired with the next set. So the next set is going to be a fully fledged draftable set like Monarch, like Tales of Aria, Welcome to Wraith, Arcane Rising. But there's going to be a product release with that, or maybe a little bit before that, in tandem. And he didn't say what it's going to be, but it's going to be a way to get new players into the game, and it's going to be very flavorful. Now, a lot of people immediately jump to PVE or single player or whatever, because that's just what people like to assume these days. But it could be a lot of things, right? I don't think it's safe to just assume it's going to be like a PvE thing. Definitely could be, because I know Legend Story Studios is toying around with that, and it would be a good way to introduce people into the game, at least mechanically speaking. It wouldn't be a good way to introduce them into the, the competitive aspect of it. It could also be some classic constructed starter decks, right? Because we haven't had those since Welcome to Wraith, and some classic constructed starter decks, maybe in like a dual deck box set that's super flavorful and maybe has some alternate art that has like alternate art but in flavor of the new zone that we're going to be going into, hopefully VOLCOR. We'll talk about that maybe in a little bit, but I think that could be another really, really cool product. It could be, like I said, something as simple as like a dual deck. It doesn't have to be like this PvE thing. Could be, but I think everyone should temper their expectations, because I have a good feeling it's probably not going to be like a PvE thing. Once again, I think it'd be cool. I love the old Warcraft TCG PvP stuff, or PvE stuff, the raid decks. I have some up over there. I have the Onyxia's Lair and the Ice Crown Citadel raid decks. And I think they're great. And I think if Flesh and Blood did something like that, it would be really cool. Also, this is a product that will be purchasable at the LGS. It's not a freebie product like the IRA Welcome deck. So they want a product to bridge the gap between the IRA welcome decks and the like competitive play stuff. So I'm really curious on this. I think Flesh and Blood really does need a good, better introductory product to get more people into the game. That's one of my big goals of the year, is to just help get more people into this game that I love, and I think this will go a long way to do so. I think formats like Commoner and Ultimate Pit Fight really go a long way, but having an official product to help people get in will help immensely. Now, the other thing that was mentioned, and one of the most important things that was mentioned, is that, this was in the article, is that the third set this year is going to be a supplemental set like Everfest. Now, that is very interesting, and I think that is going to tie into the previous set, right? I think that's going to actually have more to say on what the draft set is than anything else. And this is all like pure speculation on my side, but here we're gonna put on our tinfoil hats. We're gonna dive into the rabbit hole here. I don't know if I'm gonna be right here. I have been very right in the past. I've also been very, very wrong in the past in regards to Flesh and Blood. So this is gonna be interesting to see which way it swings here. Okay, so I've been chomping at the bit to talk about this. I really want to talk about this. So in the interview that Flake did with James White, he kind of set the nets out for community questions, and I posed a question. And my question was, to James White, which region of Wraith are you most excited to explore and expand upon? And he snap said VOLCOR. All right, so VOLCOR is the region that James wants to expand the most. Doesn't mean that's where we're going to be going next, but it definitely could be. We also know James's favorite class is Wizard, which is from VOLCOR. Now, given those two things, if VOLCOR is the place that James wants to expand the most, and possibly the next set is VOLCOR, we know that the set following is a supplemental set like Everfest. What if that set was a VOLCOR themed supplemental set supplementing the draft set that is also VOLCOR themed? So we have Everfest is to Tales of Aria what the third set is to the second set of 2022. I hope that makes a lot of sense here, but I think that would make a lot of sense as to why they're doing another supplemental set, because you would think they'd want to have as many draft sets as possible, because draft is an amazing way to play the game. Having more draft sets give people more, it gives people more options of play, and it's also just great for the competitive scene and that kind of stuff. You know, the Pro Tour, World Tour, you can have draft, you can have sealed. That kind of stuff is fantastic. So it's a little weird to me that they're doing 2 supplemental sets this year and not 2 big sets in a supplemental set. And what that tells me is that they have a plan for this supplemental set, and it's probably going to be very targeted. I also think, because we have another supplemental set immediately after a big set, that we might see, finally, well, we saw this last year with Monarch, but we might see another set introducing a brand new class. And that would make sense because we have the brand new class introduced in this new set, and then we have a supplemental set immediately after, maybe expanding upon that new class, and maybe, you know, all the other classes too, but maybe more on that new class, right? And then expanding maybe more on the talent that is introduced in VOLCOR. So all of this makes a ton of sense to me. And in the interview that James had with Flake, he also mentioned that the classes in the lore book are coming, right? He didn't say that they're off the table. He actually said, like, you just have to wait. They're coming, which is, you know, once again, it's not confirmation that we're going to have one in the next big set. But all of these things added together, putting the tinfoil hat on, right? Making it into a little pointy wizard hat. Because I think we're going to VOLCOR, and I think we're going to have Wizard. I think we're going to have another brand new class, maybe Necromancer, who knows, maybe Assassin. Assassin and VOLCOR makes a lot of sense. But in any case, I really think that these things all make sense to me, right? As someone who is creative themselves, these things make sense to me, why they would do this stuff. because as on a business side of thing and an organized play side of things, you want to just have as many draft sets as possible. But if they're introducing a brand new class and they want to expand upon that class and also expand upon the world, the flavor and the lore of VOLCOR, having a VOLCOR set and then a VOLCOR supplemental set following afterwards, supplementing that new class, but also all the other classes too, like Everfest, makes a ton of sense. So that way, all the classes will get support this year in meaningful ways, but we'll also have a brand new class with a bunch of new cards. So this is something that I've been thinking about a lot. It makes a ton of sense to me, and I think that's the direction we're going this year. Who knows? I could be wrong. We could be going to the Savage Lands or the Pits and Metrics. I personally would love to go to the Pits and Metrics, but I kind of just feel that we're going to be going to VOLCOR, and I think it's a good flavor turn after Aria, because we have Aria right now and it's very whimsical, and then you have like these grand vistas of mountains, like beautiful snow-capped mountains and these lush magical forests, and then VOLCOR is just like on fire and it's brutal, and it's a good juxtaposition, right, to have Tales of Aria and then bam, VOLCOR. Like that's just makes sense to me as a creative person. Savage Lands doesn't make sense to me because it's too similar to Aria, in my opinion. It's just like a big jungle. There's probably more stuff too. Like there's maybe like I don't know, oil pits or caves or something in Savage Lands, but it's similar-ish to Aria. And I feel Mysteria is also similar-ish to Aria, but different flavor, right? Mysteria has like that ninja, Eastern, whimsical, magic, kung fu kind of flavor going on. Though I do think, once again, pits and metrics could make sense. But anyway, these are the things that I've lined up, and then I'm thinking about. Who knows? Like I said, we don't really know until it happens. But I think it's really fun to talk about and to speculate on. Right? Keeps the exchange of opinions flowing. One of the things that I do want to really talk about are my thoughts on only having one draft set this year. It's a very interesting take. And like I said, I think having 2 draft sets a year is the ideal, unless you have some very specific plans. And that's kind of where I formulated this whole hypothesis, right? You need these very specific plans, and all of these things kind of just line up. You know, James saying that he wants to expand on VOLCOR the most, once again, could just be personal opinion, might not be anything at all. But also the fact that we have another supplemental set, also the kind of timing on this kind of stuff, it just makes a lot of sense to me. So I'm curious to hear your opinions in the comments down below. I have a feeling a lot of people will agree with me in thinking that we'd rather have 2 draft sets a year, but keep in mind we still have some products that we don't know about. So maybe those products, maybe the products are going to be like player versus environment. Maybe we'll have another one come out at the end of the year with that. Ooh, I just had a really cool thought. Okay. I was chatting in a private chat with some friends, some Flesh and Blood friends, DM Ramada, Ian Kenderdine, Jim from FAB TCG Cards, and we were just chatting about random things. And it came up with, VOLCOR came up, right? And DM Ramada mentioned that in the lore book, it mentions that the Great Dragon will be returning, all right? What raid deck did I literally just say I had? The Onyxia's Lair raid deck, where you fight a dragon. What if... Here we go. What if we are going to VOLCOR, right? We have the battle decks, the starter decks kind of thing, or the dual decks, and then we have the supplemental set, and then released alongside the supplemental set is the Dragon Raid Boss deck, right? So you have the supplemental set, and people might be like, oh, we're bummed because we don't have draft. Well, instead of draft, at the end of the year, instead of the second draft set, you get this raid deck, which is kind of like a co-op PVE kind of thing. And it fits with VOLCOR because of the dragon returning in the lore book. So, I hope people stay till the end for this, because that was, I just thought of that right now. That sounds awesome. That sounds really awesome. Once again, don't get your hopes up for any of this kind of stuff. It's all pure speculation, but it makes sense to me. It's not just me saying it for no reason, just wanting it out of nothing. Like, I have clues. I've followed the clues. Whether or not the clues are justifying whatever I'm thinking is one thing, but it's fun to think. So please let me know in the comments down below. If I'm right about all this stuff, I will make another video saying, bringing it up and praising in my rightness. I could also be very, very wrong. It's more likely that I'm wrong, but please let me know what you think in the comments down below. What do you think of having only one draft set this year? What do you think of having a raid deck instead of the second draft set? Maybe this dragon coming in and being the next experience rather than the second draft set. It's a lot to think about. I'm really excited. Everfest, I think, was an absolutely fantastic set, and I cannot wait for the next main big set, because I think that's where we're really going to be able to get into it. And I really think we'll see a new class in this main set, a fully fledged class like we had Illusionist in Monarch. I think we're going to see that here in the next set. Oh, also one thing. James said that one of the very first heroes he designed is going to be in this next set. And we know James's favorite class is Wizard. So, once again, conjecture, but I really think we'll see some really spicy stuff in this next set. Thank you for watching, everyone. Don't forget to check out all of the links in the description down below, and we'll see you next time for some more Flesh and Blood content. Have a good one all. See you later.